Wow, is this dork really going to be doing another shorts compilation? What do you think? Reduce, reuse, recycle. Talking about my generation. Look, it's the cup from that thing. It's the shirt from the other thing. I feel bad for people who first saw me in this form. They're looking at that. It's like, I wonder what this guy looks like in real life. He must be like very, very twinkly and femme. Twinkly, maybe. That roundel. I wonder what he's got on his head. You guessed it. I really like this band. Okay, so for any of you who are confused, I have dedicated the month of February to the band The Who twice now. And for those of you who can read, that's not quite happening this year. I'm once again stapling together a bunch of shorts. Oh, whoops, I forgot my set. Hold on. There's Pete. Okay, anyway, yeah, production value. These cats are my favorite dinosaur band. It's the first band that I got obsessed enough with that I actually know all of the members' names. Beatles are easy. Beatles get made into like kids' books and stuff, so it's easy to remember all their names. You got Roger, you got Pete, you got Keith, and you got John. I learned that for me because I f***ed with the music that they were playing. I go through a lot of this in past FebWHOary videos, and I'll be sure to leave links to those for people who are interested at the end of this comp. As for this February, as is the case for a lot of Februaries, winter is depressing. And I have the kind of brain where even if I have a larger project that I've been sitting on for a while, sometimes, this is sometimes, I gotta work on something small and fun and comparatively inconsequential to unblock. This is my unblocking. This is my enema. It's a coffee enema. Yeah, coffee and classic rock enema. A clenema. That sounds like cloaca, which you are now thinking of by me having said it. Take that. Anyway, even if I don't do a full tilt FebWHOary this year, this little video can at least commemorate their 60th anniversary as a band, which, yikes. I really do love this group. I love their development in their heyday. I appreciate the innovation that they individually contributed to the scene of rock music and music in general, really. There's a lot of production and studio techniques they kind of helped normalize that is still used today in multiple genres. And as I'll touch on a little later when we reconvene here, they make hella product. This is the extent of the introduction. Let's just roll into it before I ramble on any farther. Enjoy. Before making their quantum leap to larger-than-life albums that cemented their dad rock status, The Who were a singles band, a well-oiled machine of marketable tunes to blast at the dance hall, whatever the hell those were. Even then, of course, they were distinct and innovative, pushing the volume and energy of the British invasion to its limits. With anthemic tracks like My Generation, The Kids Are Alright, and So Sad About Us. One of the first emo songs, in my opinion, but I'll talk about that some other time. Anyway, it wasn't until their 1967 single, Pictures of Lily, that songwriter Pete Townshend coined a term for their sound and by extension the sound of adjacent bands, power pop. This punchy, evocative little label would be slapped on decades of music to divisive effect in critical spaces.
This is an example of the latest musical trend. It's called power pop.
While some deride this mode of rock for being derivative and predictable, I've personally come to adore this music, which is catchy, digestible, yet sometimes in its own way, melancholy. But yeah, Pictures of Lily is a dirty little song about whacking it to pinups, and I think that's just dandy.
I wanted to turn it into a solo instrument.
Who bassist John Entwistle is rightfully hailed for his virtuosic lead guitar approach to his main instrument, and has inspired generations of musicians solely with his work on the band's records. That said, what's often overlooked is his distinct voice as, well, a vocalist, but also a horn player and a songwriter, flashes of which can be found in songs like Boris the Spider and My Wife. And yes, I do say it that way every time. A fuller-bodied dose of the ox can be found in his solo projects, including fan favorite Whistle Rhymes, which features a meaty, Chicago-esque rocker called I Wonder. Now, this was the first record of his I ever listened to, and is distinguished by guitar playing courtesy of none other than Peter Frampton. How have I never covered him on here? Overall, it's a groovy listen and offers a ton of personality, dipping further into the darker tones of his Who tracks, and should prove enjoyable to fans of quirkier rock songwriters like Randy Newman, Warren Zevon, and Ian Anderson. Also, I love this turtle. So as I said at the top, these guys make serious merch. The only older band I can think of that puts out as much merch is the Misfits. But, you know, those cats at least have, like, a Scully Man. It's much, much easier to turn that into a toy or a skateboard graphic or a Pog or a pop socket. I got really close to getting a Fiend pop socket. Why am I talking about the Misfits? The Who, Pete, make hella merch. All kinds of shirts, releases, re-releases, re-releases of all of their music, posters, stickers. Here are a couple of my stickers. Actually, these are my only stickers of The Who. I'm surprised I waited this long to actually get any. But these are at least officially licensed through Rockabilia, I believe the name of the brand is called. They have all kinds of official music merch, but I saw these on the side when I was buying some Christmas gifts for people. Non-Who gifts, mostly like Led Zeppelin and shit. But yeah, this was really striking. If I can find a poster of this, I might get it. I've got another poster that I don't feel like taking out that has similar images. But yeah, this is a cool sticker. I gotta figure out a place to put it. This is a slightly smaller sticker of a much more iconic design. This is like the vintage Who graphic. Maximum R&B, minimalistic. Eddie Vedder has a shirt of it in a recording of Pearl Jam's cover of FebWHOary. Like, that's iconic. That's the 60s. About as 60s as Hard Day's Night, let's say. Also, speaking of merch, in honor of the 60th, the band seems to be doing like this month-by-month special edition release of posters and shirts. And already off the bat, this one for I Can't Explain. I don't need it. I don't need it, but I need it. Yeah, that's... Wait here. I'm gonna very cautiously get the music of theirs that I own physically. I'm gonna gush about a guilty pleasure of mine, an unsung gem of Roger Daltrey's solo career that was dedicated to the late great wildman Keith Moon. The Who's collective body of work in the 80s is divisive among fans and critics as their particular brand of classic rock collided with the pomp and cheese of the decade with less success than many of their peers. That said, they would crank out an occasional winner, and this pounding, over-the-top pop rocker is definitely one of them. Loaded with enough synthy testosterone and melodrama to fuel a dozen montages. Roger's vocal performance explodes with sincerity, and the climax features not one, not two, but 7 f***ing drum solos with a varied collage of industry performers of the time. Most notably Zach Starkey, son of Ringo Starr, and future full-time member of The Who. Again, this thing is so big and sprawling it flirts with absurdity, but on a late-night drive through the city, or maybe a morning training run for the big fight, it's pretty damn satisfying. Go check it out. If The Who's Tommy tapped into the quasi-mystical trends of flower power, their next rock opera took a more reflective, self-referential approach to its story. Chronicling the angsty ups and downs of a teenage mod, Quadrophenia looks back on England's pop scene with the hindsight and technical skill of a band that made Won't Get Fooled Again. Performed with their usual 4-piece might, yet layered with ambitious studio touches and sound effects, the album features some of Pete Townshend's most potent songwriting. In centering the action around a listless kid in the thick of an identity crisis, the band expresses a deep emotional understanding for the era's youth, and is comparable to Catcher in the Rye, American Graffiti, or Saturday Night Fever. It's such a cinematic work that it was eventually adapted into a movie that I'd eventually like to cover. Till then though, get the best pair of headphones you have access to and enjoy this stunning musical drama about well-dressed scooter gangs. No, I'm not kidding. I'll get to those next. So here's a used deluxe edition of Tommy, this being the album that got me into the band in the first place. It's like a pretty good gatefold recreation of the vinyl, which, you know, I would like to eventually get. This is like a pretty banged up copy of it that doesn't even have the slipcover it was supposed to go in. I got it for like 30, 40 bucks used. But yeah, this was the record that started it all, so makes sense that it would be the first one that I would own in some shape or form. Here's the first and as of now only record of theirs that I own on vinyl. Also, incidentally, the first vinyl I ever bought for myself. The collection's beefed up substantially since getting this. Yeah, by many accounts, their strongest record. I tend to agree just because it's more consistently good than most of their other projects, either by virtue of how lengthy it is and how hit and miss the songs might be. Like, pretty much every song on here is a banger. It's the one that gets the most radio play. On a technical level, it was their most revolutionary album. Basically solidified classic rock, like dinosaur radio rock as we understand it now. This played a huge part in distilling a sound that other artists like Pink Floyd or Boston would strive for. Just like massive, big sounding, tasty, sweet music that you could blast in your car. Okay, I lied to you all, but worst of all, I lied to myself. I don't just have Who's Next. I also have My Generation, their first record, and their second record, a quick one. And these were both remastered half-speed versions that supposedly keep a higher fidelity to the original sound by... I don't quite remember what half speed is. But yeah, I have those, and it's cool to have those. And then I also have this greatest hits collection that was a Target exclusive. My cousin got me this for Christmas one year, which is pretty dope because it gives you like a pretty good condensed history of the band. Y'all have seen this one before, and yes, it remains unopened. The Who Sell Out, their third record, one of their more cutting-edge ones for the 60s, for sure, like even before Tommy. It's a concept album that's structured like someone tapped into a pirate radio station that only plays Who music and commercials, I guess. This has a bunch of extras in it that I would like to dive into. It's a big Mac Daddy release. I'm happy to have it. Part of me considered unboxing for this little doodad that I'm shooting right now, but nah, next time, baby. But whenever I do that, I'll also unbox this thing that almost made me pull my muscles just now, picking it up with one hand. I have Who's Next twofold. This was this version of that, but I've given Pete Townsend so much of my money. In this box are multiple mixes of this masterpiece, metric ass ton of demos, and even a graphic novel version of Pete's Lifehouse concept, which many of the songs on here were originally supposed to go into. It was supposed to be a follow-up to Tommy, a rock opera about like the counterculture, technology, artificial intelligence, spirituality, just like a lot of themes that are similar to Tommy, but a bit more heady and ambitious than even that was. TLDR, Pete couldn't do it. Too big. Couldn't hack it. Too big a thing. But yeah, the contents of this box give all the little details and even a loose sequencing of what it would have sounded like had they actually, made Lifehouse. I'll unbox this next year as well, I think. But let's get back to the show. Every generation has a few different flavors of counterculture and youthful revolt. Angry young men found outlets as greasers and moto gangs with varying MOs and politics in the 50s and 60s. Hippies and proto-hipsters had their time in the sun, and punks took classic rock and roll to new levels of aggression and nihilism. Hands down, though, the most aesthetically sharp strain of these groups was the mods. Scooter riding, fashion-minded blokes and blokettes who'd pop amphetamines for non-stop partying, all to the furious soundtrack of bands like The Kinks, Small Faces, and of course, The Who. The name itself was derived from modernist, channeling a jazzier vibe than the rival rockers, who were essentially the UK's answer to greasers.
Are you a mod or a rocker?
No, I'm a mocker.
While the two camps would dissipate over time, a mod revival that crossed paths with new wave and punk would eventually crop up to keep the mythos and imagery going. It's iconoclastic stuff, far beyond what I'd have done at that age, as doomed to irrelevance as anything else like it, but damn dude, I cannot deny the f***ing drip. Who drummer Keith Moon is one of the most iconic and revered drummers in classic rock, his maniacal persona translating directly into a barrage of hard-hitting beats and chaotically precise fills. When he passed shortly after his work on their album FebWHOary, Small Faces drummer Kenny Jones was enlisted to take the seat at the kit, due in no small part to his status as a veteran mod. While he held his own while touring and recording those albums, even he knew he could never replace the chemistry Moon had with the group, and The Who eventually called it quits. For the first time of many. But the next major substitute was a legendary intersection of rock history. Zak Starkey, son of Beatles drummer Ringo Starr. Ringo and Keith were incredibly close friends, the latter even becoming Zak's godfather and one of his earliest encouragers of his music career. Even Kenny played his part with some early lessons and eventually gifting Zak one of Keith's old kits, which was kept in storage by the band. I got no punchline for this one, I just think it's wholesome as fuck. As a final little piece of nonsense, I want to show off some fan art. It's not mine. I want to give a shout to Cherubcrater, who actually drew the channel assets, my banner and my PFP. I met Crate because she actually did fan art of old head rock. The Who was the big one, but there was also, you know, Todd Rundgren art, Beatles, Yes, even. Really, really talented artist, and we actually ended up being pretty chummy with each other because she impulsively started a group chat of other Who fans and actually sent me some prints. This one's 70s Pete performing in front of a crowd. Really cool. Appreciate that. And then this guy, which, wow, it's so wholesome. There were also 4 of us in that chat, so this is kind of poetic. I basically got to pretend to be a 60s stan with a bunch of strangers who became, you know, online homies. Not a very active chat anymore. We've since moved on from the Who in our own ways individually, but you know, a lot of magic happened in that chat. Just like a wholesome hangout where we could pretend to be boomers for a second. I was the oldest one there. I'm destined for boomerdom no matter where I go. Anyway, thanks to Crate. Much love to Squadrophenia. Yes, that is what we called it.